Assalamualaikum, we are Group 2 and going to present about operational lease. Okay, hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Handayan Ibidi Safizal. My matrix number is 052853. So today I'm going to start the presentation with the criteria for selecting the potential leasing customer. Okay, the first criteria that bankers will look is character. Although it's called character, it's most specifically referred to credit history, lessee reputation, or track record for repaying debts, and character assessment is to determine the willingness and desire of the lessee to repay the monthly payment. The general impression lessee makes on a prospective lessor. A person of character usually possesses attributes such as honesty, integrity, responsibility, as well as commitment to his obligation. A bank taking a more holistic approach to determine lessee's creditworthiness for a lessor to get a sense of how trustworthy your business. They check everything from how long your company has been in business. Okay, next is security or collateral. It's like the insurance to a banker or lessor. It serves as a safety valve for unexpected emergency. It may be plot of house, building, car, of insurance policies in term and deposit. There may even be cases where there's no security at all. Its security and adequacy alone cannot be a sole consideration for availability quality of loan proposal. Nevertheless, lessee security must be adequate and readily marketable, easy to handle, and free from encumbrance. It is the duty of banker of lessor to check the nature of security and assess whether it is adequate for the loan granted. Okay, next is capacity or repayment. It's referred to capability of the lessee to repay the monthly payment. It is usually measured by how expected cash inflow of the lessee or his business. Besides, the SME bank is also interested to know the legal capacity of the lessee. It is necessary to investigate whether a lessee has the legal capacity to obtain the leasing or authority to borrow on behalf of his company or business establishment. So basically it's about your ability to repay your loan. Okay, this list is about condition. Economic condition affect the ability of the lessee to meet financial obligation. Change in competitive condition, technology, demand for product, a distribution method may affect a lessee business. The knowledge in this change will help the SME bank to evaluate the vulnerability of lessee business to change in economic condition. So basically, it's describe the circumstance affecting your loan, whether about economic, legal, or regulatory circumstances in a related industry. Okay. Next is capital. Capital indicates the financial worth or wealth of the lessee. Capital also reflects the accumulated wealth of the lessee, and credit is usually not supplied to business concern unless capital has been supplied by the owner. Down payment size can also affect the rates and terms of borrower loans. For example, lessee who put the down payment on a car typically find it easier to receive a financing. To bank, the larger down payment result in better rates and terms. Okay, next slide is about purpose. The purpose should be productive so that the money not only remains safe but also provide definitely a source of repayment. Speculative and other undesirable purpose are not acceptable. A leasing or loan is speculative when the source of repayment comes from the future sale of an asset at a profit. And the most important is the bank needs to make sure the purpose is written is true. Okay, the second last criteria that bank will look is amount. The amount required depends on the purpose of the lease and the lessee or the source. Consideration should be taken as regard to whether the amount taken is sufficient for the given purpose of the lessee. Lessee need to highlight their needs to avoid further borrowing from other financing. Lessee have to call for the budget line and statement from account to make sure the amount stated is sufficient or not for the purpose. The last criteria for selecting the potential leasing customer is about duration. Leasing period is also important to the bank, as the bank needs to make sure that investment return plus the interest, but the bank will experience an illiquid position if the period is too long. The lessor need to analyze carefully to reduce the risk. Nowadays, usually banks are prefer to lend in longer term based on appropriate purpose and source of monthly payment of the lessee.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Nur Anis Nadira binti Roslan. My matrix number is 052849. Now I will continue about feature of vehicle leasing. But first, allow me to introduce you to the lease process. So, what is the meaning of leasing? Leasing is a contract between two parties, the lessor and the lessee, in which one commits to rent property owned by the other. It ensures that the lessee has access to an asset while simultaneously ensuring that the lessor receives monthly payment for a defined length of time. In contrast to a conventional sale or a hire purchase agreement, the parties to a lease agreement do not intend to transfer ownership of the chattel. A lease is defined as an agreement wherein the lessor transmits to the lessee in exchange for rent the right to use an asset for a specific length of time, according to the Malaysian Institute of Accountants International Accounting Standard Number 17. If either the lessee or the lessor does not follow the contract's term, they will suffer repercussion. There are two types of leasing. First, operating lease, and second is financial lease. Operating lease is the financial institution on the property, while finance lease is financial institution on the property, but the lessee, on the other hand, has the opportunity to buy the asset at the conclusion of the lease. Next is product of leasing. In SME banks, the lessor has given the lessee the option of leasing a range of vehicle types, whether he or she wants to lease a car or equipment, and so on. They also have the option of choosing between two types of loan, operation lease and financing lease. Thus, if the lessee chooses to lease a car, they may choose from a variety of vehicles including 4WD, SUVs, and MPVs. Let me give some example. The lessee wishes to lease a Honda HR-V, which is a SUV model with a price tag of Rm 103,320.61. Then they also choose for operating lease as a borrowing option. As a result, the amount of loans that SME bank may offer to this lessee range from Rm 20,000 to Rm 250,000, with term ranging from 3 to 5 years and a service fee of 5% per year. So, that's all from me. I will pass to the next presenter.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nurul Ifa binti Ishaq. My matrix number is 052867. Okay, for my part, I will explain the procedure for the potential customer to apply leasing. As you know, when we want to apply for a loan, such as a housing loan, personal loan, or any loans, there must be a procedure that we must follow. The same goes for a leasing. Okay, based on the slide, first thing first you need to do is you need to fill in the application form. Usually, when you go to the bank or financial institution, they will give you an application form to get your information and the company information. While filling it out, there are also documents that you need to prepare and submit along with the application form. For example, a copy of identity card, the latest 3 to 6 months of bank statement, official registration document of the firm, and the official businesses document like MAA, Form 9, Form 24, and Form 49. Now, I will explain a little about the required document. For a copy of the identity card, if the company is Sendirian Berhad Company, then you are required to bring a copy of the identity card for all the shareholder and the director of the company. There are the sample of a copy of the identity card. Okay, next is the bank statement, which is a document that covers all the transactions of an account during the month. Generally, this document is sent by the bank to the account holder in the form of paper copy or electronic copy. This document also contains the bank information, business information, account information, statement date, account summary, transaction summary, and bank message. There are also many people who questioning why do banks need the company bank statement. The reason is because the banks want to ensure that the company has the ability to repay the financing amount, and it also because the bank want to avoid the occurrence of the default risk. Moreover, the bank want to see the official registration document because they want to make sure that your company is already registered under the Company Commission of Malaysia, or in Malay language is referred as Suruhanjaya Syarikat Malaysia, SSM. Subsequently, the MAA, or the Memorandum and Articles of Association document. MAA is a legal document that defines and regulates the relationship between a company and the external parties. The submission of MAA document is a mandatory when you want to register a company to the Companies Commission of Malaysia. Furthermore, Form 9 is a certificate of incorporation document. This document is a proof of your company's incorporation. Meanwhile, the Form 24 and Form 49 is an application of registration, which also known as super form. This type of documents is required because it states all the basic information of the company, for instance, name and type of the company, the nature and description of the businesses, detail of the directors and shareholders, as well as the information of the person who submitted the incorporation application. Okay, for the next step, after completing and submitting the application form along with the required document, the bank will take 24 to 48 hours to process the application form and will give you a notification when the process is complete. Once your application has been approved, you must review and finalize the lease structure, including the monthly payment and the fixed APR. After that, you can sign the document and resubmit it to the bank. After the bank accepted the signed document and the first payment is required, you will be notified that the lease is in effect and you are now free to accept the delivery of the equipment and begin the necessary training. Finally, the funds will be disbursed within 24 to 48 hours directly to you or to the manufacturer where the equipment was purchased.
Thank you to previous presenter. My name is Wan Muhammad Hafiz bin Wan Muhammad Ramli, number matric 052897, Program Diploma in Banking. I will continue our presentation today. In this slide, I will explain about advantage and disadvantages of leasing. Advantages of leasing. First, balanced cash outflow. The biggest advantage of leasing is that the cash outflow or payments associated with leasing are spread over several years, thus saving in significant cash payments burnt on. This helps the business to maintain a stable cash flow profile. Second, quality asset. When leasing an asset, ownership of the fixed asset rests with the lessor, while the lessee only pays the rental expenses. Given this agreement, it makes sense for business to invest in a good quality asset that may seem unaffordable or expensive. Third, better usage of capital. If a company chooses to lease an investment in an asset by buying it, release capital for the business or finance other capital needs or to save money for better capital investment decisions. Fourth, tax benefit. Lease expenses or lease payments are treated as operating expenses and therefore interest is tax deductible. Fifth, of balance sheet debt. Lease expenses get the same treatment as interest expense. The lease is treated differently than debt. Leases are classified as off-balance sheet debt and do not appear on the company balance sheet. Disadvantages of leasing. First, limited access to other loans. As investors view long-term lease as debt, it may be difficult for business to leverage the capital market and obtain further loans or other forms of debt from the market. Second, processing and documentation. To make a lease agreement is a complicated process and requires thorough documentation and proper inspections of the leased asset. Third, no ownership. At the end of the leasing period, that lease eventually does not become the owner of the asset, though a large number of payments have been made over the year for the assets. Fourth, maintenance of the assets. The lease remains responsibility for the proper maintenance and handling of the assets. Fifth, limited tax benefit. For new starters, tax spending may be minimal. In this case, no additional tax advantages can be derived from leasing expenses. That's all from me. Thank you. I will pass to the next presenter.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Safiya Zafri bin Sa Abdul Rahim. My metric number is 052AA7. So now I'm going to explain about the importance of secrets and CTOS. Before that, let me briefly explain to you about what is secrets and what is CTOS. Secrets is your financial health report card to give loan providers an assessment of your suitability to borrow money from them. A secrets report is an important element of having a potential loan approved, which makes it an essential part of early steps towards owning your first home. BNM is provided with monthly updates by relevant institutions to compile the necessary information such as banks, insurance providers, development financial institutions, payment instrument, insurer, and so on. But what is CTOS? CTOS is a credit reporting agency that provides credit reporting for individuals and financial institutions. CTOS collects and provides individuals with their credit reports that detail their credit history for the past 24 months, legal proceedings, company ownership and directorship, and even testimonies from companies that they have business dealing with. So now I'm going to talk about the importance of secrets and CTOS. At first sight is to get loan approval from bank. Sometime or another, you might need to apply for a loan from banks due to several reasons, like purchasing a property. They shall look up your credit history based on the report generated before making any decisions. They calculate your debt service ratio, balancing the risks involved, and several other factors that will give them comprehensive insights to an individual's financial health. A second is used by banks to decide when you apply for a credit card or even a loan from banks. Before they determine to approve or reject your application, it will go through a credit approval process to look into your credit history. The bank you apply to will look at your credit reports before they make decisions. If your credit reports are in good shape, bank will usually have qualms to approve your application, and vice versa.
Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Wan Afini Iza binti Wan Aidi Rahmat. My matrix number is 054369.
So I will present about repayment of leasing.
What is meaning of repayment of leasing? So meaning of repayment of leasing is the regular monthly repayment amount that you or any other person, business or corporation has committed to pay under the terms and condition of the lease agreement is referred to as the lease repayment. There is no final residual or balloon payment. What is deferment of lease repayment? So, it is temporary deferment or suspension of lease repayment obligation, which is a principal and interest for a limited period of time. So, during this period, customers with financing that meet the conditions do not need to make any repayment, and no late payment charges or penalties will be imposed. So, interest or profit will continue to accrue on financing repayments that are deferred, and customers will need to honor the deferred repayments in the future. So, this repayment resumes after the deferment period. The next one is repayment fee. So, we have three, which is the first one is calculated based on principal component of installment. The second one is offering grace period in case of late payment due to force majeure clause. And for the last one, we have mulling lower or waive fees as appropriated for the existing borrowers with late payments. So how the customer make the payment? So the customers can make the payment through payment channels. So there are 5 common channels that customer can use to pay. So for the first one, through online banking. All bank can use it, all the type of banks. So the second one is bill payment. The third one is over the counter. The fourth one is through ATM. And the last one using cash or check deposit machine. I will tell you what's included in the lease liability. So a lessee measures the lease liabilities at the start date as the present value of lease payments that have not been met yet. The payments comprise, the first one is fixed payments, which is including in substance fixed payments, less any lease incentives receivable. Second one is variable lease payments that depend on an index or rate. The third one is amounts expected to be payable by the lessee under the residual value guarantees. The fourth one is the exercise price of a purchase option that the lessee is a reasonable certain to exercise. Actually, there are the last one, which is unless it is reasonably assured that the lease will not be terminated early, payments for terminating the lease shall be made. There are two things in operating lease, which is ROU assets and lease liability. So a lessee may use one or more of the following practical expedients, which is the first, they are going to use discount rate, which is apply a single discount rate to a group of leases that have a lot of similarities. Second one is they're using leases with a short remaining term, which is short-term leases are those that have a lease terms that ends within 12 months of the date of the original application. The last one, they're using use of hindsight. If the contract offers alternatives to extend or terminate the lease, for example, when deciding the lease period.
Documentation process of vehicle leasing. Documentation is one of the most important parts of a successful lease agreement. Although reasonable leasing is an important sign of safe leasing, if there is no well-structured and competitive leasing document to support the contract, interesting business ventures can easily lead to problems. As for documentation needed for vehicle leasing in the SME bank, the needed documents are for new vehicles, they need to separate quotation from different reputable supplier. A supplier's quotation is a document from a potential supplier that indicates the cost of the goods or services it will provide within a specific time of period. Supplier quotes can also include sales terms, payment terms, and guarantees. The buyer's acceptance of the offers is regarded as a binding agreement on both parties. Second, they need brochures and specification of proposed vehicle. Vehicle specification are snapshot of important vehicle details and are usually displayed by the dealer at the dealership. When people inquire about a specific car, they attach a hard copy of this information to the window or provide it as a brochure. Next, provider or supplier profile. Supplier profile is a reference file used by procurement professional to catalog important supply information. The procurement expert will send out a questionnaire filled out by the supplier. This profile contains questions that will help purchasing professional understand the supplier's priority, identity, and details of their product. Then, vehicle permit. The vehicle permit is a document issued by a state or regional transport authority that permits the use of a motor vehicle as a transport vehicle in a certain way, in accordance with the relevant provision of the Motor Vehicle Act and the provisions contained in its parts. However, police, fire brigade, ambulance, and cranes are not included in the list. For use of vehicles, they also need two separate quotation from different reputable suppliers, provider or supplier profile, and also vehicle permit. The only difference is that they need a certificate from Puspakom or Road and Transport Department and other related authority. The Road Transport Act 1987 requires all private vehicles to undergo transfer of ownership inspection at Puspakom prior to ownership transfer. This inspection helps to protect the new vehicle owner from buying or owning an unlawful vehicle such as cut and joint vehicle. This is a sample of certificate Puspakom. Insurance applicable for vehicle leasing. When leasing a vehicle, people will need to take out auto insurance even if they are not the owner of the vehicle, as whenever they rent, they will have to meet the minimum standards of auto insurance as well as additional requirements from their lessor, such as fully comprehensive and collision protection. Thus, takaful or insurance coverage is mandatory if the asset is given as security for the financing. For collision coverage, they cover damage to the vehicle in the event of an insurance incident involving a collision with another vehicle. This may include repairing or completely replacing the insured vehicle. Thus, comprehensive coverage, responsible for vehicle damage caused by insurance incidents such as theft, vandalism, or hail unrelated to the collision. This is the sample of insurance applicable for vehicle leasing.